bias, exposing the propaganda, and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth. Welcome to the night's broadcast. We're broadcasting live from historic Roane County, Tennessee. This is your host, Tim Tapp. Tonight we're going to talk about a few different issues, but the main crux of tonight is Dianne Feinstein's continuing effort to define what truly is or is not a journalist. But before we get into that, we're going to cover a few other topics, starting with the fact that evidently there is a group of truckers that are threatening to, quote, shut down Washington, D.C. In fact, reportedly, this group of truckers is planning on shutting down D.C. for 3 days straight, starting on October the 11th, to protest the, quote, corruption against the Constitution. The Truckers to Shut Down America Facebook page has more than 16,000 likes, though it's unclear how many truckers actually intend on taking part in the disruptive protest. Now, to me, sounds interesting, but the American people are sick and tired of the corruption that is destroying America. We therefore declare a general strike on the weekend of October 11th through the 13th, 2013. Truck drivers will not haul freight. Americans will strike in solidarity with truck drivers. That's the description that the group has. This sounds suspiciously not like a patriot protest, but some type of socialist propaganda bit to me. In a YouTube video uploaded by user Kevin Allen and linked to the Truckers to Shut Down America Facebook page, the event is labeled as a general strike by the American people against the federal government, and it's BS. Of course, they don't use the abbreviation. The narrator in the video says that he has received word from others that truckers are organizing and are going to shut down D.C. Now, again, not really sure about what the point here is, but it is, of course, too early to tell if the, quote, strike will be successful. But shutting down the nation's capital would certainly have a huge impact whether you agree or disagree with the tactic. The Facebook page provides some additional information on the motive behind the action, which ranges from Obamacare to the IRS scandal to Benghazi. There's a portion that says, "My fellow patriot, this effort is to support the truckers in a major shutdown of America in and on a 3-day strike, October 11th through 13th. Obamacare will be in effect and most people will be ready to take action. No commerce on those days. Stock up on items that you will need. No banking, no shopping, no money transactions. It does not matter if 1 million or 50 roll through D.C. in this effort. Congress will listen to we the people," which is remove Obama from office for crimes of treason and misdemeanors. We want congressional hearings on Benghazi and SEAL Team 6. Lois Lerner put in jail. No amnesty. Remove all Muslims in our government that do not uphold the Constitution. Remove Eric Holder from office for crimes against the people and the Constitution. And last but not least, fuel prices. Well, looking at this particular list of demands, I'm wondering, is any of this anything our current government would be willing to even budge on? Remove Obama from office? Okay. I'm agreeing that especially since his most recent move to give himself an exemption on the law requiring that the U.S. government shall not trade arms with known terrorists, that while I've always argued in the past that his eligibility for office is really more in question, this probably does constitute the type of high crime we're talking about. Hard to say that it's not treason. Beyond that, congressional hearings on Benghazi, well, we're actually getting those. So, kudos. And SEAL Team 6. That probably will not happen. Lois Lerner put in jail, I can get behind that. But you'd still be kind of hard-pressed to find her jail-worthy, as she still, despite her overzealous for the job, was still only following orders. No amnesty. Okay, I can get behind that. That seems reasonable enough. Remove all Muslims in our government that do not uphold the Constitution. Well, when they put the do not uphold the Constitution, why are we even saying Muslims? Let's get rid of everyone that's working in our government but not upholding the Constitution. It is part of the oath of office for the majority of office holders, whether they be appointed or elected. Remove Eric Holder. Okay, most of this I can get behind, but will this list of demands make a difference? Hard to say. I would not hold my breath. And if this is legit, if they really are going to do this, then I would certainly be interested to see what our senators and representatives have to say about it during and after the fact. Could something like this be effective? It certainly could. But I'm kind of skeptical as to how many people are really going to be involved with this. I mean, I like the idea, and I would be supportive of it. Let's just make sure that the proper people are being targeted. There are better ways to be heard. So, it is what it is. Moving on, another piece of information that I think most of you might be interested in hearing about. Did you have any idea that in a single county, illegal aliens are set to receive $650 million in welfare payments? This, according to the Gateway Pundit, on the September 18th posting, written by John Hawkins, and essentially taken from Right Wing News. There is a projected $650 million in welfare benefits to be distributed to illegal alien parents in 2013. Anybody care to take a guess as to what county? We are talking about one of the biggest illegal alien hubs in the country. Anybody want to take a guess? Los Angeles County. But really, when you consider it, biggest hub or not, it's still a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, American citizens are expected to pay $650 million a year to take care of people who aren't even supposed to be legally here? I mean, they're not even supposed to be in the country. And I'm not one of these people that says, no, we shouldn't have the safety net. No, we shouldn't have assistance for people that actually really deserve it. The problem is, most people are working the system rather than letting the system work. And in this particular case, I have a very hard time justifying giving anything to anyone that doesn't belong here. But there's an estimated 100,000 children of 60,000 undocumented parents that receive aid in Los Angeles County. And then that is what makes this year's projection. We're talking about $1 million from the nearly $53 million in total benefits issued in July of 2012. Now, we're underscoring the economic impact of the nation's immigration debate with this. When you add the $550 million for public safety and nearly $500 million for health care, the total cost for illegal immigrants to county taxpayers in Los Angeles County exceeds $1.6 billion a year. These costs do not even include the hundreds of millions of dollars spent annually on education. Oh, but wait. Just when you think that you've heard it all, haven't we actually been told that this doesn't happen? I mean, listening to the Democrats, I thought illegal aliens were supposed to be a huge economic benefit to Americans. Well, how much of a benefit are illegal aliens in LA County? I mean, they're literally leeching over $1 billion a year from the wallets of productive Americans. Now, just throwing a crazy thought out there, but maybe making these welfare recipient citizens isn't the smartest idea in the world. So, be interested in what you guys had to think. Send me a message. Contact me at tapintothetruth.com. Or go to the Tap Into the Truth Facebook page. Leave a message there. Send me a direct message on Twitter. I want to know what you guys think. Seriously, $650 million a year for welfare recipients. It's mind-boggling. Certainly worth bringing up, though. I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back from the break, I know normally I don't take it this early, but I'm really going to hammer away at Miss Feinstein. When we get back, I don't want to be interrupted. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Tap Into the Truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog posts and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with Tap Into the Truth. Thanks for listening tonight. Happy to have you with us. Hope that you're enjoying the show, find it slightly informative, or at least don't mind hearing me just go on and on about the issues. Good news, if you're not a fan of Obamacare, it looks like they are going to make an attempt to link the continuing resolution with defunding Obamacare. Don't know how much of this is going to be political theater and how much of it is actually going to lead to defunding or a government shutdown or failure to raise the debt ceiling. We will have a much more in-depth conversation about all of that a little bit later, but I had to get to this story. Dianne Feinstein, a couple of weeks back, attempted to add a amendment to a new media shield law, and we talked about it and discussed it on Tap Into the Truth. I believe it was most likely on the Blog Talk version, if I'm remembering correctly. So if you want to go back in time and check out some of our archived episodes there, just seek out Tap Into the Truth at Blog Talk, or you can check out Tap Into the Truth at Stitcher.com or at TuneIn. You'll find those same episodes there. Of course, you also can find Tap Into the Truth, both this and the other version of the show, easily accessible at iTunes. Never know what your preferred method of media consumption is, so we're trying to get it out there and make it available for you. In the meanwhile, as I was saying, we did discuss this then, and I'd kind of hoped that some of the backlash that had occurred as a result of this would have made Miss Feinstein and her Democratic cohorts take a step back. Withdraw. Because here's the thing. It's problematic at best. All right? Here's the deal. This idea, they've been talking about literally for a few decades now, actually passing a law that would protect a reporter's rights to be shielded from overzealous judges so that they can protect their confidential sources. But in the process, one of the most dangerous aspects of this law is, by definition, the government must, in fact, create a definition of what they consider to be a legitimate journalist. Well, like I said a few weeks back, Ms. Feinstein, in her effort, decided that it should be only those who are paid employees of a news agency. Well, there was a big backlash from that, and even several members of professional journalist groups stood up to help defend their brothers and sisters in the new media, the not-so-mainstream, the bloggers and the radio hosts and the social media /broadcasts like Spreaker and Blog Talk and Podomatic and all these other formats where folks are simply taking to the airwaves. You're going directly themselves, and technically they're taking to the internet, but this still has the look and the feel of a radio show, but at the same time there's a certain amount of social media that goes on too. So it's what happens when you combine Facebook with your favorite local radio station. That's what these sites are. And it's a great thing. It allows a certain amount of interaction, but it also still allows folks that are willing to take the time and put in the effort to get on the air and get the truth out. We can report things that the mainstream media is not reporting or that they're underreporting. Well, Miss Feinstein does not want us protected under those same guidelines. She doesn't want a 17-year-old blogger who maybe actually comes up with the best, most in-depth reporting on the planet to have that same level of protection. There was backlash. There was a lot of pushback within professional journalism. They didn't like the government trying to define what was and was not journalism. I mean, I don't know how far the National Communist Party, the National Democratic Party thinks they can continue to push the mainstream media before there is eventually a snapback. I mean, they're at that point with the labor unions now. We've seen it. The big labor is mad as heck, and they're not going to take it anymore. They know Obamacare doesn't work for them. But they can't get a waiver now, and they can't get any type of special consideration, a.k.a. Give us cash to cover the difference. That's what they wanted. That's what they went into the meeting and asked for. They were told, no. Turns out the useful idiots have served their purpose. So big unions getting their fill. The media, who should have, and we saw very little pushback, but there was a little bit initially when they found out that the government was spying on reporters, and even putting certain reporters on lists of accessories for doing investigative journalism. Well, the journalists got a little miffed at that. Now there was a little more pushback with this story when they found out that Miss Feinstein, fine Democratic senator from the state of California, also one of the biggest hypocrites on the issue of gun control, I might add as well. Not that it's surprising to find hypocrites in the Democratic Party. Not that I'm saying you can't easily throw a dart into a crowd and hit a hypocrite in the Republican Party either, all right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not disavowing that it happens on the other side of the aisle. I'm just saying it's real freaking easy to find it going on the left side of the political spectrum. Miss Feinstein, one of the biggest hypocrites on gun control, she's leading this charge. The pushback was there, okay? What happened as a result of this pushback? Did she rethink her position? No, she went into committee with some of her little Democratic friends, and they worked on a compromise to this amendment. They haven't withdrawn it. They're still trying to push it. And Miss Feinstein still believes that freedom of the press really, honestly, truly should only be provided for those people that work for what she views as legitimate news outlets, which sadly enough automatically excludes you if you work for Fox News, which I think most of us would consider legitimate, whether we agreed with them or not. They're certainly as legitimate as MSNBC, whom I'm sure Miss Feinstein would be graciously willing to offer any protections that she could muster for the fine mudslingers of MSNBC. So what's the point? What's the pushback? What is going on now? It's insane. That's the deal. Miss Feinstein has went so far as to say that the First Amendment, although she didn't put it like this, these aren't her exact words. This is paraphrasing, okay? I'm not trying to give her a quote here, but paraphrasing what she said, because it means the same thing. She's saying that the First Amendment is a special privilege and not a right. She's saying that freedom of the press simply doesn't apply to everyone that's working in the new media. In fact, it doesn't apply to anyone working in new media. So bloggers, sorry, even though if you listen to the wording that she uses in this amendment, a lot of blogs, if you set up your own blog and you're out there reporting news and you are busting your hump to do what you need to do in order to break stories, then you still fit the definition as they put it forth. But then in the same breath, she still says that it still only should be a legitimate journalist. That you have to have credentials to be a journalist. Well, this isn't about journalism. This is about abridging the propaganda machine, allowing protections to those that will aid and assist them in deceiving the American public. In the meanwhile, silencing those voices that will stand in opposition to that. Who is leading the charge to try to bring truth and common sense and at least an opposing viewpoint to the public en masse, both here in the States and internationally? Because when you're on the web, baby, there's a reason why they call it worldwide. If you're right here on Spreaker, as this show's being broadcast, this company is based not inside the United States. Right? The company that runs this format that we're taking advantage of right here, that I'm using to speak out, that you're using to listen in, worldwide, baby, international. We're talking about a European company here. And it's great that we can embrace a worldwide audience, those who choose to listen. Now, this show is broadcast in English because I am a citizen of the state of Tennessee, the United States of America. But right versus left is going on all around the world. Conservative against liberal is going on all around the world. And unfortunately, a lot of the biggest hypocrisy that we deal with worldwide, it starts and festers right here. So we address it here. And this is absolutely asinine because, first of all, we should not allow the government to define what is and is not journalism. If you are trying to report on news, if you're doing something other than just editorializing, then you are a journalist. It's that simple. You are one. Now, you may not be a fancied, credentialed journalist. But in truth, isn't it more important that you're trying to seek truth and inform the public than it would be the fact that you attended a university and studied journalism before becoming one? In fact, I would contend that in a lot of cases, a lot of the best journalists around today have not received that formal education in journalism. Therefore, they're not poisoned by the liberal thinking, liberal-minded professors at university that's going to try and convince you that it's not your job to report on facts. It's your job to shape the opinions of the sheeple. Because let's face facts, that's what the journalists with credentials are doing for the most part in this country. Those are the people that Miss Feinstein is trying to protect with the media shield law. Miss Feinstein's amendment would ignore the protections afforded by the First Amendment and would limit the media shield law's protections only to what she considers to be real reporters, not bloggers and, quote, other upstart alternative media types. Well, that's me. That's the other host here. That's the other host at Blog Talk. That's host over at Podomatic. That's any radio host on a commercial radio station. It's a ton of people that are not working for someone else. I'm doing this independently, and a lot of other folks are doing the exact same thing. But I tend to think that I fit the bill as a journalist as much as just about anybody because I put in time to research and try to verify stories before I go there. But I also tell you straight up, I'm not simply reporting facts. Sometimes I'll just take a story and I'll report that story to you because I think it's important, and I want you to do further research on your own and, as I often say, use your brain. But in the end, I editorialize, and there's a difference. And it's important that you understand there's a difference, because we've got way too many people. And, I don't know if it's all Walter Cronkite's fault, but Walter Cronkite definitely was one of the folks that made it cool to editorialize. If you were a journalist, you wanted to be able to do that with the same authority and the same reaching of the American public that Walter Cronkite had. I'm Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. But it was definitely at that point, and there was a huge shift. Television journalism in particular, but print followed very quickly. All the stories began to work with a slant. So where's the real journalism, Miss Feinstein? What is your problem with allowing a shield law to protect everyone that's actually trying to report facts? If they get a confidential source and they're going to break a big-time story, what's wrong with them being the ones to break it? What's wrong with citizen journalists being allowed? Let's not forget that at the time that the founders wrote the Constitution and passed the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, Miss Feinstein, not privileges, rights. At that point in time, the majority of journalists were citizen journalists. And the majority of newspapers were simply run by affluent members of the society, folks who had enough money that they could afford a press. And lots of times, if any of these people did have a college education, it certainly wasn't in journalism. But journalism existed. Freedom of the press was written into the Constitution, added to the Bill of Rights, was made part of the very First Amendment at a point in time where there was no such thing as accredited professional journalists. All it took to be a reporter in those days was you'd work for the newspaper. You'd go out and find as many facts as you could. You would write up the report. It would go into the paper. And then whoever owned the paper would editorialize based on that. But again, still, most of the time, there were a few notable exceptions, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time going into that right now. But most of the time, the editorials were kept separate. In fact, I still distinctly recall, maybe I'm giving up my age a little bit here, but I don't feel like I'm that old. I still distinctly recall a period in time where they would simply try to report the facts, and then when it was time to editorialize, they set that little point aside and said, and here's the editorial. And there it is. What's the difference, you ask? Well, in most modern journalism these days, every story written comes from an editorial point of view. I've gotten so sick and tired of hearing people, primarily on the left side of the political spectrum, talk about how far to the right Fox News is in its reporting. Now, if you want to look at its editorial shows like Hannity and the O'Reilly Factor and shows like that, yeah, It's coming to you from a right side of the political spectrum mentality. But again, they let you know up front it's opinion. They let you know up front that they're opining, that they are editorializing, that they are telling you what they think and how they feel about the facts that's going on. But in the mainstream media, whether it's print or television, every story, every headline is chosen to elicit a response in an attempt to control what you think and how you feel about the story they're about to report. If you will sit down and read any 5 stories from the Huffington Post online, and that's easy enough to do. Most of you probably out there have AOL. Most likely have the free subscription version of it now. Huffington Post provides the majority of their news service. Click on just a couple of the stories and read it. And if you'll take the time to read it, you'll see from the very beginning of the headline all the way down, especially if you look at anything political, they phrase every bit of the writing to try and control how you're going to think and feel about what they're telling you. And they want you to agree with their side. They instantly take, even at the onset of the headline, something defensive to protect Obama, or something offensive to attack Ted Cruz, Ron Paul, anybody who's standing up for the Constitution, anyone who's standing up for fiscal conservatism. You know, it's just crazy talk to say, let's not raise the debt ceiling anymore. You have the occupier, Mr. Barack Hussein Obama, running around saying, well, you see, it's like this. We've got to raise the debt ceiling so we can pay our bills. It's just not right that the United States of America shouldn't pay its bills. And those people over there who want to stop us from paying our bills are crazy. We've got to do it. Now, this isn't raising our debt. It doesn't raise our debt. Okay, then why do it? Don't ask me a legitimate question. You know I'm not prepared to answer those. Quick! Jay Carney, please, get my teleprompter guy to put an answer to that question up here so I can respond to it. Come on. Are we really going to play games? Are we really going to let this go on? Dianne Feinstein, let me call you out again. The First Amendment is about freedom of speech. Freedom of the press is an extension of freedom of speech. If you're going to try and define what is a journalist, then you have to go with the broadest possible definition that would fit with the intention of the founders when they wrote the First Amendment. Let me remind you again. Touched on this already. At the point in time that it was written, these journalists didn't have fancy degrees in journalism from hush-posh, hoity-toity universities. In fact, most of them were probably only half a step away from being criminals anyway, if they weren't actually criminals. Of course, that made it helpful to sneak into places and get the story. The institution of journalism has often looked down upon new media. But even they have stood up and defended the new media folks on this issue. I say, let's not bother with the shield law. If you can't use the broadest possible definition, and you know what the argument is, of course. If we make the definition too broad, then people will start breaking the law and claim that it's simply a matter of protected sources, and they'll just say, well, I'm a journalist and I'm protected. No, come on. If we could actually have a return to common sense in this country and actually materialize that common sense in the courtrooms and, of course, in Congress and, heaven to help us, the White House, then we wouldn't have to worry about so narrowly defining anything. See, and that's the biggest problem. Common sense just doesn't exist for these people. They legitimately think that they have to do all this. Why? Because we, the people, are too stupid to be trusted to think for ourselves. And they certainly don't want us voicing our opinions or speaking out. And those of us who have something counter to say, like those of us who would challenge raising the debt ceiling, those of us who would challenge giving amnesty to illegals, those of us who would challenge allowing somebody to not face consequences for the obvious failures in Benghazi, those of us who would challenge the status quo, those of us who would dare to challenge the D.C. aristocracy, those of us who might even suggest that we take a long, hard look at the amendments that have taken place since the first 10, everything after the 10th Amendment, seriously look at them and possibly do something as wild and crazy as, I don't know, repealing the 17th Amendment. Oh, no. You mean letting the state legislators go back to electing our senators? How scary for the folks that are sitting there right now, because I think a lot of them sitting in the Senate now would not be there if they had to convince their state legislatures to send them, rather than buying a bunch of votes, manipulating the system. Miss Feinstein, let me remind you one more time. The First Amendment, there is nothing about the Bill of Rights that is a privilege. The privilege is yours, ma'am. You get to serve the people. And you need to remember that your job is to serve the people, not just the people of your district, although they should be first and foremost in your mind, but also, since you are in the Senate, your job is to serve the whole of the nation. The people throughout this country, not just in your district in California, not just the people of the state of California, but the entirety of the citizens of the United States, with reasonable consideration given to non-citizens that are here legally. Okay? There is nothing, zero, nada, not a single part of the First Amendment or any of the other first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, none of that, none of it is a matter of privilege. Driving a motor vehicle is a privilege. It's not a right. Having the opportunity to go to university is a privilege. It's not a right. Maybe you want to make it one. I'm not arguing that it wouldn't be great to be able to just get everybody into college. You've done enough in the form of grants and scholarships that should be in reach for just about everyone. But it's still not a right. Why? Because colleges have the right to turn you down, right? Are you going to tell Harvard or Yale, Princeton, that they no longer have the right to turn anyone down that applies? Because if it becomes a right, then it's a right to go to any of the places that they want. Because most universities are private institutions. However, you do still have the state schools as well. But the state schools have the right to say, sorry, you don't meet our criteria. If you're going to make it a right, they no longer have the right to turn anyone down. You really want to do that? Because if you do that, then I will sign up to any college in this country, not paying a penny, because it's my right to get to attend, and I'll go ahead and get my degree in journalism, and then I'll have protection. Ladies and gentlemen, please call these people out on this. Don't let Dianne Feinstein and her little buddies, Chucky Schumer and Dick Durbin, don't let these people get away with this. They're trying to define journalism. That should be easy enough. But they are trying to squash freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Those two are combined. There's no other way. There's no way to separate them. That's why they're together in the First Amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running over already. That has to be tonight's show, but something tells me we'll be talking about this again. Meanwhile, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Take some time, do your own research, use your brain, and check back with us again. Always time to tap into the truth. Have a great night, everybody.